What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the first of many weekly updates. My name is Blake. If you're new here, welcome to the channel. I am a writer, a coach, and I am someone learning how to fucking introduce myself. No, but seriously, I am 25 years old. I am deeply interested in all things exploring pathways of potential. That is the great path of becoming who we could be. I have been a young men's coach for about 4 years at this point. I think probably somewhere between 500 and 1,000 session hours, which in the grand scheme of things isn't that much, and to some people is a lot. And this is my life. And if you're new here, that's what we talk about. We are talking about pathways of stepping more into our potential. Again, that is who we could be, becoming that in order to live a more beautiful, alive, thriving life on all levels. And as we're going to get to in the update, we love to explore the artist, the athlete, and the entrepreneur. And that when you don't have one without the others, it is largely incomplete. So those are the arenas that we like to explore. Since this is the first of many of these weekly updates that we're going to be doing, I just want to go over a bit of the format. So we're going to start by just, I'm going to give you all the update on what's been going on within the realm of the artist, the athlete, and the entrepreneur, things I've been building, I've been working on, the processes, the behind the scenes, how are things going in terms of what I'm building to and how my progress is in terms of getting there. We're going to go through, I'm going to share some of the ideas that are occupying my mind space in these days. What are the ideas that I keep chewing on that I feel inspired by? And then we're going to end with the Q&A. And so in the future, I am going to be taking questions from you all because I want to ultimately be answering questions from you all. But for now, I asked my dear friend Claude, what are some questions? And gave me a bunch, and I went through and found some that I enjoyed, and that's that. And we're going to try and keep this to somewhere like 25-ish minutes or something. If you're listening on YouTube, I have this out as a podcast on all the other big platforms, Spotify, Apple, all that. And if you're on those, I'm also on YouTube. So if you're new here and you enjoy the video, I'm going to ask you to subscribe so that you can see the next one. But without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so we are going to start with the athlete because that is the, actually, let me just unpack that a bit. Okay. These are different archetypes that we like to draw on. You have your entrepreneurial hat, which is being a business owner, being in the realm of finance, business, money, services. The athlete, you know that. And the artist. So that's creativity. That is creating things, writing, all that sort of thing. And we are all artists when we are in the pocket of creation, of creating something. So that's just the framework real quick. So let's go through the athlete. This is an easy one because I have realized that I have a something going on within my body and like an iron deficiency sort of thing. And so I have been like feeling like I have a cold and mono at the same time for about a month and a half. And I just figured it out and I'm starting to take supplements, but I've never experienced something like this. So I've been on the couch, sitting down for a while, all day kind of thing. Probably operating at like 50% energy. And I was working out in the beginning, but I kind of stopped. And so I have not been doing much, but I do want to start going back to the gym. Obviously, I work out a bunch when I'm not normally like this. And I guess I can speak to the intentions there. I definitely have been wanting to get into calisthenics for a long time. And so I do feel like I'm going to be doing that when I get back. I want to get my handstand down. So getting the handstand going. I have a course online that I just need to go through. And also kettlebells. So those are a lot of things. I probably can't do them all at the same time, but those are the big things. Because I realized that I've been working out my whole life and I've gotten really fit, but I'm still working out like I did when I was in high school. And I know that I'm not doing everything right. And I know that there's just an entire, world of movement and exercise out there that I'm not tapping into. It's like the classic, just get the bench press up and then everything else is going to be good, versus movement as a whole, which isn't always just strength training. Also, getting into mobility stuff, things like this. So there's a lot out there, but not much to update there. Okay, artists, there is a lot to update there actually. So if you're new here again, or you're just getting to know me, I have a weekly newsletter that I don't usually write every week. Maybe it's sometimes every other week. Sometimes I have bigger articles, but I have really been taken by some of my writing lately, and so I've written a book, and that book was like my life up until that point, and now I am getting ready. I shouldn't say getting ready. I am definitely on my way to writing my second book, and this is going to be a much bigger project. I think it's going to be a much better book. Hopefully that means I'm getting better, and it's cool. And so I kind of just bought all these books to read, and I feel like I'm creating my curriculum. So I'm creating my curriculum for my next book, kind of like the research that goes into it, even though I think the ideas are already there. But that's really exciting. So been doing that, been still in my writing. I haven't been touching my guitar or singing or anything like this at all lately. So music has been dead. And I've been posting on Instagram. I don't have a system right now in terms of how many times a week or anything, but I've been posting a lot more, which is fun. And so much shit has been coming up for me around that. Like, if you have never posted on Instagram in a meaningful way, I mean, when I say that, I mean like in a way that feels really true to your kind of zone of expression and creation, and you're talking about things that you really care about. I don't know how everyone else does it. For me, it's like so intense of just bringing up all the belonging things, like, oh, the cool kids over there at the cool kid table are just going to be laughing at me. That's the feeling. They're going to be looking at me and laughing at me. So anyway, I have been posting, and sometimes it's so funny actually. This is what happens is I start to when I'm posting and I'm in the creation of the video, it feels so freaking good. Like I'm in such a clear flow state. It feels so good. What I am making feels so good and looks good, and I think it's going to be good and all of this sort of stuff. And it's just like, yes, let's go. This is awesome. And then like 30 minutes, an hour after I post it, so much comes up for me. I guess it's like this vulnerability hangover or something, or just being seen hangover kind of thing. And it's a kind of a regular pattern that I've identified at this point. And yeah, it's intense. It definitely is intense. And I think that is because, sorry, let me redact that last thing I said. This is a pattern that I definitely see when you're doing something that is like really meaningful to you, or you're doing something that feels like it's in alignment with something deeper than you. I don't know. Or maybe the best way to say that would actually be you're doing something that is progressing your growth. Because if it is actually deep growth, then it is probably also going to be scary. And so when you do something that feels really good and you feel connected to it, in alignment with it, and then it's immediately followed by, the pendulum swinging back into fear, into resistance. Through my experience, that's a really good sign. That means you're doing something worthwhile. Like when those two are tied together, I think that's usually a good sign. So anyway, that was a long-winded way of saying that's where I've been at in terms of Instagram. I still have been pretty consistent with weekly podcasts, which has been so nice. And I'm glad. This week I still need to post actually, but because I think ultimately that's my favorite thing to do is the podcast. I love it. And I do want to get just more clear on my systems of, okay, I am now committed to one podcast a week indefinitely. And then for Instagram right now being like, okay, generally how many times do I want to be posting a week? Because right now it's just when it comes, and kind of the fire hose energy. And I want to just make more of a system. Because I think over time, when you have structure and over time that I just post a podcast a week, I know that I do that. I post it on Monday every week, yada, yada. Over time, you don't need to think about that as much. It's just so ingrained within you. And I think that's the magic of structure is, like Cal Newport talks about, we only have a certain amount of willpower. And so the more routine that you have, the more things that become automatic habits, you don't have to use willpower for them anymore because they're automatic. Now you get to use your limited supply of energy of willpower towards the things that you're needing to think about, the high level thinking things, which would be the podcast itself, you know? So wanting to do that for sure. I'm definitely like at a new place with some of the things that I'm creating. So still getting used to it, but it's all good. And I think the other thing to say there is I'm feeling like this real shift within what I'm creating, where it's not just throwing something out into the infinite black hole of these algorithms and saying whatever happens to it, you know. Making that shift more towards, I actually want to reach someone with this. Like there is an intention there. I want to speak to a very specific person, because one of the goals besides creating on those platforms for me is to find the others, to find the people that will uniquely resonate with my message and what I am up to in my life. Because I want to find the others, and because I genuinely feel I have something valuable to offer. And so there's something about relating to that, you know, that intention, I think, that feels a bit more vulnerable, because all of a sudden, again, it's not just whatever. It's like, no, I want something to happen here. That's what I'll say with that. Okay, now we're on to the entrepreneur. The entrepreneur, I am building out my next big course. So like I said, I've been working with young men for about 4 years, one-on-one sessions though. Last year I did 3 cohorts of a 45-day group program, which was all about committing to habits and a project in a group of people together. Very much this energy of like doing the things that scare you, making the change that you feel resistant towards in a group of people, which is epic. And now I am moving on to my big next offering, which is going to be a 10-week course. I think I'm going to call it the Forge, which was actually the same name I used for the other course. And it is for ambitious young guys who are not fitting the mold in today's society, who maybe feel like they're behind, who have not found their way. And for me, it is bringing them together and giving them the curriculum that I surely needed that I never had. Because I think in our society right now, it's either you fit that mold or you are a failed at launch, or you are, you know, unsuccessful. And it's just so not true. And I think that more and more people are not fitting that mold of this is how you do your life, college, job, internship, yada, yada, boop, 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 boop. Follow along like your dad did. There's a lot of people, I think, who are starting to not follow that mold. And we were never given a roadmap to find our way outside of the mainstream beaten path. And that is such a singular way of living life. And the problem with that is that for most people, I think, who are on that traditional path, they're not on that path because they've gone through this massive self-discovery process and then come to the realization that, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I want to do with my life. They didn't arrive at that place from in that way. No, this was just like head down, follow the orders. This is all I know. God bless them. But I think there's a lot of people who are waking up to that reality and saying, I don't actually feel drawn to that. There's not a lot of meaning in that. I don't feel excited about living that way. And I think whether or not most people can articulate this, what that feeling really is that I don't feel like that's my life. That's not me, because I'm not even deciding to live that life from a place of inner truth. Which that isn't exactly the way that I wanted that to come out, but I think you get what I'm saying there. There's many people who are like the lack of fulfillment and enjoyment on that mainstream path. I think deeper is like feeling disconnected from your own path and who your life. So it's still early, it's still coming along, but I was one of those people, and I was lost, and I have been living like 6 years now, finding my way. And this is why I'm talking to you. This is why I have these ideas, is because I chose to keep going down my path and seeing where it is. And I want that. I want that for people. I want to give people the roadmap so that they can find their path. I'm not telling them what to do. I'm giving them, these are some ways where you can start to tap into that. And the last thing I'll say is what I really want to create is a dream team of young guys who are building a dope fucking life and who want to do it with each other. Not, failed launches who are trying to get off video games talking to each other. Like young guys who are saying yes, who are showing up, who are excited and ambitious about doing something epic in their life, but who have not fit the mainstream mold. Because there's this entire world outside of that one singular path that you feel like you have to go on. And if you don't conform to it, then you're broken or wrong or whatever. It's like, yo, I feel like I'm on the other side of the bridge and I'm like, yo, guys, it's fucking dope over here. It's worth it. It's worth it. Come over here. Follow that place within you that brought you to this moment of seeing the bridge in the first place. Follow that. So that's what I'm building. That's what I'm up to. Okay. Now, next section. Current ideas. Current ideas. So, context is everything. What do I mean by that? Well, podcasts, social media, YouTube, all these kinds of places. I think there's so much advice circulating out there as if it applies to every single person perfectly. It's like, can you just tell me the perfect blanketed piece of advice that's going to solve all of my problems? Like that, there is some of that out there. And I was just thinking about this. And specifically, I was thinking about me sitting across from someone on the internet and judging them because I don't think you're living in your purpose. I don't think you're living your purpose. I don't think you're living a meaningful life. And the feeling that I had was, who am I to judge them for that? Who am I to judge them for that? And this is where context is everything. I can't judge you from that. I don't even know you. Can we just talk about your life? So for me, I want to sit down with someone. I want to talk to them. I want to get to know every nitty-gritty detail of their life. What's going on? What are you feeling? How's your relationships? How's your work? How is your truth-telling practice? And so we're going to start there because I know that you may be like, what's a truth-telling practice? One of the things that I really want to talk to people about is getting to know what are the things in your life that are happening, that have happened, that you feel, that you know, that you are scared to admit, that you are scared to tell the truth on, whether that's telling the truth to someone else or whether that's telling the truth to yourself. Acknowledging the reality of how things are, like what's going on. It's almost like there's something in your closet that somewhere internally is there, but you try and distract yourself from acknowledging that it's there, kind of thing. Because in order to acknowledge it and open the door into your closet would require a level of vulnerability and courage and maybe looking at something that feels really uncomfortable that you don't want to go towards, that you're not prepared for. So again, that might mean feeling the fucking heartbreak of losing your girlfriend 5 months ago. That might mean acknowledging that your habit of drinking or smoking or your phone or whatever the thing is destroying your life. That might mean acknowledging that you don't like your job. It might mean acknowledging that you're actually really angry at your best friend and you never said anything about it. There's so many things, or just even acknowledging that your life has to change. So like, what are those pieces? And, we just said a lot of like things, but what about the emotions? It doesn't have to be, oh, I need to have a conversation. It could just be like, wow, I feel really empty in my life. And that's it. But there's so many people, for example, with the emptiness thing, who feel that, who are afraid to fully point the finger and say, that is real. And I'm choosing to acknowledge that. I feel really empty on the inside. When you acknowledge it and bring it to the surface, there's something that happens. There is a spark. There is an alchemical reaction that happens when you finally say, okay, I acknowledge this. I'm here to tell the truth on this, on what's going on in my life. So that's the one thing. The other part of this, though, is what do you desire and long for in your life? And again, for some people, that might mean starting with acknowledging that I feel really empty, because I think there are layers to it, like the layers of an onion. And for some people, the first layer is going to the first layer is going to be acknowledging that this ain't it. Sometimes in order to find what is it, you have to acknowledge that this ain't it. Sometimes in order to get clear on what even an initial first step might be, you have to acknowledge that where you currently are is not it. And I think most people don't understand that, and I think that is such an important idea, because we want to know 10 steps ahead of where we are currently at before we make any sort of little decision. It's like, oh, I'll tell the truth about this not being where I want to be as soon as life shows me 20 steps ahead the end result of where I'm going to be. That's not how it happens. It's one step at a time. Boyd Vardy, bless your soul for teaching us about that. He said something like, people want to find the lion. And he's talking about tracking lions. He's like, people want to find the lion immediately without, while skipping the first track. I just butchered that quote, but it's something like that. Part of my fatigue with this iron thing is I have a lot of brain fog, so I'm trying to show up. So those are the two things, just to close this loop on context is everything. So yeah, for some people, acknowledging this ain't it is the first step to finding what is it. For other people, though, on some level what your desire, what you deeply long for that's not being met. And for you, again, it's just allowing that to come to the surface. Can you bring that to the table and say, hey, I see you. This desire, hey, I see you. I'm willing to acknowledge you. Okay? At some point, we start to make the shift in how can we bring this more into our life? The thing that you're longing for, maybe it's new friends, a new depth of relationship. Maybe it's, more meaning and aliveness in the way that you're spending your time. Maybe it is music, getting to play the guitar more, So whatever it is, it can be literally anything. The next step is going to be, how can we actually make that happen? How can we start doing more of that? Okay. So I say that because, okay, now I've sat down with this person and this is the step. Telling the truth, acknowledging these pieces, and then starting to take action on what they require and inspire, because they do. They're going to ask for a change, letting go of something, introducing something, spending more time on something, spending less time on something, having a conversation. There's an entire list of things to do. That's where we start. That is the doorway into who you are here to become. We will be playing that game of doing those things for the rest of our life. So get used to it, The necessity of defining soul. I'm going to kind of speed run these, by the way. The necessity of defining soul. Okay. I think the modern spiritual day community has murdered the word soul to the point to where most people, when they hear the word soul, they are immediately turned off. They immediately think they're talking to some woo-woo hippie person, yada, yada, yada. And I think it's a great disservice, because soul is such an important word. And I think something I'm very... that I feel very important about speaking to is really defining what is the soul. What are we talking about? Practical, pragmatic ways of thinking and relating to the soul. Okay? Psychology. The word psychology, when you break its etymology down, literally means the study of soul. And this comes from the founding of Western culture, the Greeks, where education was flourishing, and the studies of life. And I think they meant that literally. So when we're talking about the soul, what we're talking about is the part of us that goes beyond just genetics and environment and experience. What makes me me, and what makes you you? The place within us that we came into this life with, that's always been there. And for me, that is one of the main objectives of my life, the way I treat other people is like, how can we live more from that place? Because our culture has denied the idea of a soul. And so we've grown up without any recognition of these places within us, that there is a place within us that goes beyond genetic experience, conditioning. And I think that is one of the fundamental like longings and lack of being met in that longing in our culture. I think that's a huge part of why we have a meaning crisis, and it's a huge deal. So I'm actually not going to go into that today, but I am very inspired by that. And the way that I think about a soul, it's not some airy-fairy, just live by your soul. Like very concrete definitions here. That I think is important because it's an important word. It's an important idea that most people, I don't think, know how to define it themselves. They just use the word, but I think we ought to spend more time on that. Okay. Q&A time. Let's go. Let's go. How do you know when you're moving towards something real versus just running from something uncomfortable? Well, this is great because I already kind of touched on this. When you are moving towards something real, and what do we mean when we say real? I think what we mean when we say real is that it is connected to that place that goes beyond experience, genetics, conditioning. The thing is in some ways connected to our soul. Another way to think about that is the thing that we're running towards is a breadcrumb of our potential. So through eating that breadcrumb, we are becoming who we could be. It is part of our growth edge, okay? And in everything in life, as we're moving towards the growth edge, if there is a fundamental force of resistance in life, and something that we ought to learn, that if you want to learn this, go read The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. The more that you care about that, the more that you care about the thing, the more the resistance is going to be there. And I think another way to say that is the more that the thing will support your growth process, the more there will be resistance, because there is resistance to life growing. That is a part of it. It's not a bug, it's a feature. When you're doing something epic, meaningful, something that is going to progress your life in a major way, you're going to be resistance. It's going to scare the shit out of you. Ask anyone who's ever done anything meaningful. I guarantee you they'll say the same thing. So, but all that to say, I think, again, that combo that we touched on earlier, when you feel deeply connected to it and at the same time it scares the shit out of you. And often, for me, it starts with the connection, the alignment. Oh my gosh, this is what I want to do, what I like to call the lightning strike of insight, where it's like, yes, this is the thing. I'm going to do this thing. It's going to be great. I see how it's going to work out. And then after that, the doubt comes in, the fear, all of that. When those are together, when there's like this constant movement between, yes, this is the thing, and then you're scared and whatnot, and then your mind's making up all the reasons why you shouldn't do it, yada, yada, yada. That's a really good sign. So there's a sense of calling towards the thing and resistance. That's the bread and butter, baby. Follow that. So versus running from something uncomfortable. Well, yeah, I think the question's kind of flawed, because usually the things that are real will also require a certain level of uncomfortability. So that's what I would say there. And when you're moving towards something that maybe there isn't a deep sense of calling in, like, you won't have that lightning strike of insight or whatever. You'll usually have to like logically explain to yourself why you should do that thing. If you're having to logically explain to yourself why you should do that thing and that's it, like, just, I'm not going to say it's always wrong, but just hold it lightly, like question that. Is this for me, or am I doing this because I think I should do this? Am I doing this because other people are telling me to do this? Am I doing this because my society says that this is the way that you're supposed to live your life and do things? Always be wary of the should, What do you think is the thing young men need most right now that nobody is talking about? Okay, there's many things I could say, but the thing that nobody is talking about, porn comes to mind. I think we need to talk about porn. I think we need to open source the conversation and normalize a lot of things about it, because I think the number one danger within people who watch porn actually is the shame, and the shame is created because of isolation, or sorry, shame survives in isolation. When that's why the thing that you feel shame about, you don't want to tell anyone. So I think we need to talk about porn so that we can kind of start to move some of this collective shame around it that I think a lot of young men are feeling. Yeah, I also think everything that I'm talking about with the soul, and what we touched on earlier about how there's a lot of people who aren't feeling excited or inspired by like the mainstream path, but there isn't a lot of conversation around why. Why are they feeling that way? And I think this inevitably takes us into a conversation around what is a human being? Who are we? Specifically, when we come into this life, is there something about me that goes beyond just my family of origin and culture and stuff? Like something that is uniquely me? I think there's been a huge lack of that kind of conversation, because it invites an entirely different way of looking at life. I like to call it the blueprint. That thing that is uniquely me, that's my blueprint. Okay? So if I have a blueprint, that probably means that there's a reason that I have a blueprint. And part of that reason, I think, would be you ought to express it. You ought to do something with it. We wouldn't have been given this blueprint if life, whatever the hand weaving reality is, didn't want us to do something with it. And so when we start to take on that frame of life, all of a sudden, I think our life becomes this game of tracking the different ways that this blueprint might be showing up, learning to smell its scents, learning to hear its sounds, learning to track the subtle ways that it is showing up in our life, and getting good at tracking it. And again, that's a completely different way than shoulding yourself. You're tracking the blueprint of your soul off of the reserve of the shoulds, outside of the reserve of the shoulds. We'll paint a picture for you. So I think that would be it, because I think people have done a bad job of explaining the soul and spirituality. So there's a lot of young men who, like me, or we're like athletic and cool and stuff, and then they hear spirituality and they're turned off by it. But I think there's this like sweet middle way that I feel really called to speaking to, because I think it's fucking cool and it's a dope way of living, and it's alive and you can feel it, and it feeds my hunger, my intensity. So how do I define purpose, and do you feel like you have it? I'm going to keep this short. Purpose is a feeling, and it is a feeling of that we feel when what we are doing, how we are living, is in alignment with our blueprint, with our soul, with the deeper part of who we are. That unique thing that is unique to me, that I came into life with. We feel purpose when we are doing that, because in some way there is a feeling like when we are in that pocket of living in alignment with that place within us, that in some way this is like the thing we're here to do. This is who we're here to be, and I think there's a sense of being of service within that. Do I feel like I have it? I feel like I live a lot of my life in that pocket of purpose, for sure. But even in the question, how do you find purpose, and do you feel like you have it? There's just such a narrative in our culture that purpose is one thing, and once you find it, that's it. My purpose is I'm a podcaster. My purpose is, blank, and that's it. You find it, then you're good. It's not. It's a feeling, and it is going to continue to grow, and you're going to continue to find it in new ways, and it's going to deepen. I think throughout our life, we inhabit that pocket of purpose deeper and deeper and deeper. And everyone has it, has access to it. And everyone ought to live from that place. And I think purpose as a feeling is a byproduct of living in alignment with your soul, is a byproduct of learning to track the subtle movements of your soul and to live from that place. What does a real friendship look like to you versus a surface level one? Huge question. One thing that's coming to mind that I want to speak to is that there is a cultural story that we are told that fighting in a relationship means that you have a bad relationship, that the success of a relationship is determined by how little you fight. And I saw this in a TV show the other day. I was going upstairs and my parents were watching this TV show, and something was happening in the TV show where they were like, oh, we've never fought. Like, we have such a good relationship. And I literally screamed at the TV. So like, that means you had that, like, that means your relationship is probably pretty shallow, because if you are truly in a deep relationship with other people where you're not just playing these performative roles and trying to be good boy and good girl who just stays surface and never causes too much tension, God, I always do that. I'll have like these big riffs and then I forget like the final punch. But you see what I'm saying? If like, yeah, if you are actually going deep with people and letting yourself be seen and like not hiding, dog, there's gonna be conflict and tension. You're gonna get in fights with each other, and I think that this is like, it's such a huge shift for some people, and this is something that I've talked about with some of my clients so much, because they'll come into the session and just be like, oh yeah, we're in such a good relationship, we never fight. We're always all good. And internally, I feel like, dog, that doesn't mean you have a good relationship. Fighting is not a bad sign. There's this quote, I heard it from Connor Beaton, but it's like, the quality of relationship is determined by your ability to go through a hard time with each other and come out on the other side okay, which basically means learning how to fight. So, you've probably heard that too before. Everyone needs to learn how to fight with each other in relationship, Yeah, I think a real friendship's one where you're really having tough conversations, where you can tell each other when you're bothered and stuff. But also a relationship that's like holistic. For me, a relationship needs to have both the ability to play and laugh and be in the lightness and have a good time, and also to go into the deep waters of intimacy and of hard conversations and of learning how to fight with each other. For me, those are like the two big pieces. And when I have just one without the other, is a sense of incompleteness. It's not to say every single friend in your life has to have a perfect balance of both, but for me, like, a perfectly balanced relationship has both of those things. All right, next question. What does success actually look like to you? Not the Instagram version. Success to me is when someone has created a lifestyle where they are paid to express their gifts, where they are paid to get to inhabit their pocket of purpose. And it is actually the value that others receive from the expression of them being in their pocket of purpose that they are compensated for. To me, that is success. And obviously I'm talking about success within the lane of just business. I think success on a more, on a bigger scale outside of just the lane of business would be, deep friendships, like we just said. So there's deep friendships, the career piece that we just touched on. Yeah, and I mean, at the most basic level, like a deep well-being, like a deep sense of satisfaction in life. I would say that's success. But there's so many different ways that can look, right? But for me, success, a real success, is like fully expressed human occupying their purpose, their pocket of purpose. Okay, final question. Why do you think so many young men feel stuck but can't name why? I think so many young men feel stuck because the roadmap that we have been given by our culture is insufficient, is no longer working. And like I already spoke to earlier, the reason I think it's no longer working is because ultimately the path that our society has given us is built on the idea that we are blank slates. That is, there is nothing within humans that makes me uniquely me more than makes you uniquely you, besides genetics, experience, and cultural conditioning. And so again, our culture has been built on that idea, and I don't think that's the truth of who we are. And so our culture and the pathway our culture has offered us to walk is built on a assumption of what a human is that's ultimately not true. And so I think we're reaching this point where the truth of who we are, which is we each have a blueprint within us that makes me uniquely me. It is my unique nature that I came into this life with. So I think the truth of who we are is banging on the doors saying, yo, listen to me, look at me, live from me, acknowledge me. And that's showing up in a major way where there's a lot of people, there's a lot of young men who are living their lives who feel stuck because I think they're trying to go down a path that's ultimately not theirs to go down. And they don't know the other part of the question, why can't they name it? Because we've never been given that language. So it's showing up as a feeling of stuckness, and we have no way of describing why I feel stuck or any of this stuff because no one's talking about this. So I hope that language helped you. Yeah. And I will leave it there. This is my first weekly update, 42 minutes. Holy fuck, that was long. So apologies if this felt too long. Thanks for being here. Wishing you all a beautiful week. Again, my name is Blake. If you're new here, I appreciate you for being here. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, subscribe, leave me a comment. Maybe you have questions for next week. I will definitely answer them. And that's that.